If anybody else has bought any of these Delta body sprayers, if you've had any problems with these things clogging up in time, there is a fix for them. And we actually did get a water softener, even though we're on municipal water and it's pre-softened. It's not as soft as it should be. We built a couple of showers, we have glass doors. It was pretty evident pretty quickly that we needed to do something. So we put in a water softener, and I thought it would really help out as far as these things clogging up. But the orifices are so tiny that any hard water deposits all over time. Generally, it probably takes 2 to 3 years initially to happen. In our case, the body sprayer that was closest to the valve was the one to occlude first, and the other one secondary. So what would happen is that you would have a slower flow in the one side closer to the valve, and then the other side was still blowing pretty good volume. So I just decided that I'd share this with other people because if you bought Delta, they're pretty decent units and you kind of bought it for life. So it's kind of a disappointment as they start to clog up. So I'm going to show you what you need to do that. One thing is going to be a pretty good size pliers to get the body of it apart, and then probably a razor of some kind if you have it siliconed around the unit. The most critical thing that you're going to have to find is some form of a pin, but it's going to have to be pretty small to get into that orifice to clear out the hard water deposits. So if you have one of those, come on in and I'll show you what I do. She says don't turn on too much light because it won't focus. Well, I got to see myself, so. Anyway, first what you would do is take off the silicone around the orbit here, where it fastens up to here, and then slip off the outer ring first of all. And then the next thing to do is to get this loosened up slightly, and then straighten this piece out. If you have it up angled like we do, you're never going to get this ring off unless this is straight. And then you can finish turning this piece off. And then once you're past the threads, it'll come right off. And then the next thing we have to do is to take this ring off, which screws off the main section. So what I like to do is take a large pliers and just go on this surface here, not on the threads, because we don't want to screw up the threads. It shouldn't be terribly tight, and hopefully isn't. You don't want to bite down there too hard. But that wasn't too bad. Once it's loosened up, then you can take it off the rest of the way by hand. And if your sprayer is straight, that'll come straight off. And actually at this point, you can take the sprayer out too. And then you get a little bit of water there. If you have a diverter valve, have that so that this section's disconnected. The problem is that there's a tiny orifice on the inside here. It's not in the center like you'd think. It's in an orbit that's between the white plastic and the brass centerpiece. And there are connecting pieces. So I'm going to show you what I do to clean that. I take a very small, a rugged but small pin, not a saw, and a pliers. And then what you want to do is to go in between this piece and insert this to clear out the hard water deposits. And you're not going to be able to stick it all the way around. See, right there is an anchoring part of it, but there I can go through. And I actually did this once already, and I thought, you know, I'm going to share this with others because others are going to have the same problem. So where it's a dead stop, where it's metal on metal, that's not where you go through. But you do go through in the other areas, so it's kind of like you just have to find where it's supposed to be open and stick the needle through to clear out the hard water deposits. And you want to go all the way around this piece. And I haven't looked to see if anybody else posted anything about this on YouTube. Maybe somebody has, I don't know, maybe not. But I've already done this once and I'm kind of doing it a second time. It seemed like it wasn't spraying quite as hard as the other sprayer. Now, after you're ready to put it back together, make sure that there isn't any contamination left in here. So get this all cleaned out and have this inner surface nice and clean too. And then we're going to put our silicone grease, a small bead of it, on the seal so it slides in easily and seals nicely. And this I kind of left together. This will actually come off of here. If you want, it's just a tight fit. So first we get our spray head in, make sure it slides in so that the seal goes in all the way around nicely and doesn't get hung up. The silicone grease will help that seating process. And then get our ring back on, line our threads up so that she goes on easy. And then we screw that as tight as we can by hand. And then take your wrench. You're not going to want to get this terribly tight, but we definitely want it snug. And do this again, seating on this inner ring. Can do a little more by hand. There we go. Okay, and then I'll snug that up. Get it snug. And then at this point, we take our first chrome ring and get it on. This has to be straight still, even if we're going to aim it up. Otherwise, we're never going to get this back on, and we're never going to get the threads to take. This is probably the crankiest part, is getting the threads lined up without cross-threading. And once we get that on straight, it's going to be spin on there nice and loosely. And you should have that foam seal seated properly. I should have shown that, but just make sure that goes in. We want this to be basically hand-tight, snug. We don't want to do anything but our hands. And I think I'm not going to use silicone because it does have that inner foam piece, and I know I'm going to be doing this again. So I'm just going to make it hand tight. I'm going to rely on the foam to do an adequate job sealing. And now we want to aim sprayer. In our case, we like to have it all the way up and then use a minimal amount of water and have it spray up as high as possible. So then you seat that where you want it, up, down. You can even do sideways, of course. And then these have these little clips here. We want to make sure that we get a clip in one of these that doesn't have the extra ring here that goes all the way back free. So we get that seated in there and it slides right on. And then we can still rotate it if we want, but you do have to have it generally. I guess you can still, yeah, I was wrong about that. You can still aim it once everything is together. So at this point, then what you want to do is check it and make sure that it's cranking out the same volume as the other side. So we're going to do that test now. So we're going to turn it on just low. And before we had real occlusion here, and I've just got them turned down low. But in this case, they're about the same. We'll turn it up a little higher. And now we've got about the same flow rate. And the back one being further away hasn't become occluded at all yet. So we're going to call that fixed. So that's a quick little fix for the Delta. Thanks for watching.